Welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who is the 34th President of the United States, said, "We must especially beware of that small group of men, selfish men, who would clip the wings of the American eagle in order to feather their own nest." Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. It is, however, the ignorance of the ignorance which represent the greatest danger to a society. It is what turns an ignorant man into a lunatic. Thus lies the danger, the peril even of a man, a community, a state, a country, and yes, even a society. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, said, "The ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all." Indeed, it does. We've seen it, have we not? We've witnessed it. We are all living it, are we not? All men are born ignorant. Many have chosen to stay and live in ignorance. Only a few realize that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil and have chosen to be ignorant no more. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch program. First, a warning. This program is not suitable for all audiences. I repeat, the content of this program is not for everyone. To find out if it's suitable to you, answer the following two questions. Question 1. Would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? Question 2. Would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? Once again, would you entrust your teenage daughter to a known rapist? And question 2, would you have a known pedophile cared for your toddler? time is up, obviously. If you had difficulty answering either question, this program is not for you. If you answer yes to either or to both questions, this program is definitely not for you. But if both of your questions are absolutely not, this program is catered exclusively to you. You should stick around. It is enlightening, informative, and educational. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the Fourth Branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. George Washington, the first president of the United States, also one of our forefathers, warned us to guard against the imposture of pretended patriotism. You see, democracy is not just an election. It is our daily life. It takes just a moment to vote. Just a moment. Yes, you may have to stand in line. It may have taken you a few hours. However, in comparison, it is just a moment to vote. But it is a lifetime impact on a country. So when you go to vote, you should vote wisely. You should vote like a patriot. You should vote to preserve the nation for the future generations. You should vote against government wrongdoing. You should vote against government corruption. The 2018 midterm election over. Democrats have been reveling in victory. They call it a blue wave. Republicans felt, well, deflated because they lost. But have they? The country, for the first time, has made some semblance of correcting a huge mistake that we have been living with for decades now. You see, there are two major political parties in the country. And for as long as we can remember, it has never been about the constituent. Yes, politicians of both sides always bring their argument to the table and really spin it around to let their respective constituent think that they have any interest in their well-being. But for the sound-minded individual, the sound-minded patriots, it is hogwash. We've seen it. Politicians of both parties have adopted the same behavior, but we can lay the blame pretty much squarely at the door of the Republican Party for most of the part. The reason is despite their claims to be Christian, despite their claim to be conservative, and despite their claim to be fiscally conservative, we have learned as of late that none of those belong to the Republican Party. Yes, they can tell you some point in the past they were. Were they? We can go as far back as humanly possible to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Republicans have never been Christian or Christian conservative or fiscally conservative. In fact, most of the debt acquired by the country have grown drastically under Republican administration. Ironic, isn't it? How could you possibly be fiscally conservative and at the same time be responsible for growing the national debt every opportunity that you have? But more to the point, legislators, based on the way that the government was structured by our forefathers, are supposed to work on behalf of the people, on behalf of the constituent. And they have also another very important job to do. It is to put a check on the executive branch. That's why our forefathers, the framers of the Constitution, made certain that there are three branches of our government. All three are equal. For the past 8 years, Republican legislators have been in control of both houses, and for the past 2 years of all branches of the government. You wouldn't know that if you weren't in the country, because every opportunity that Republicans legislators have, they blame the other side, the Democrat, that is. Ironic, isn't it? They have all the levers of the government, and yet every time that they fail, they point fingers to the other party. The Republican legislators in particular have been very good at deceiving the constituent. I've written many times about that. They are masters of deception. But what troubles me particularly is the outcome of the election. Yes, the Democrats revel in the victory that they had. Yes, it's called a blue wave, as if this is the best thing that has happened to the country. Sadly, unfortunately, it is far from being the case. In fact, the 2018 midterm election gave the opportunity to see a very different picture of the United States of America. It is said that there are two types of fools in the world: those who cannot change and those who will not change. And it so happened that we seem to have found that in the Republican Party, both types of fool do exist in that party. How in the world can you possibly justify that an individual could support someone who legislates against their well-being? Marcus Cicero, who is a Roman philosopher in 63 BC, said, "Any man can make mistakes, but only an idiot will persist in his error." The media has tried as best as possible to explain away the predicament the country is in. First, to have elected the least incompetent individual in the history of the United States of America. But that's not even the worst part. But to have elected an individual who has no concern whatsoever for the country. Not because I say so. All his actions, all his words point directly to that very fact. Yes, you can spin it around, you can put a blindfold, you can pretend that you don't understand, but it is impossible to ignore that the advent of Donald Trump to the presidency of the United States has turned the country into a third world country, a country that has no structure, a country that has no rules, a country that has no law, a country that only one individual dictates what ought to happen or what not. But what makes it even worse is the fact that the legislative branch, also controlled by the Republican Party, has turned a blind eye, make it thirst, as bad as any third world country, any authoritarian regime. Yes, you can claim that those who call the Republican Party for their action or inaction, for their lack of oversight, you can call them traitors, as Donald Trump has done, or you can call them damn liberal, as Donald Trump and other Republicans have done. But it cannot go unnoticed that the very point of the legislative branch is to rein in on the executive branch when it goes amok, when it goes off the rail. That's what the framers of the Constitution intended. But as if that's not enough damage done by both the executive and the legislative branch, they have also hand in hand worked aggressively, overtly, to do things, to pass legislation which, no matter how much you would be good at spinning, have nothing to do with helping the constituent in the country. Case number one. February 2017, the legislative branch, controlled exclusively by the Republicans, both the Congress and the Senate, passed a $1.5 trillion tax cut, they call it, 90% of which go directly to wealthy corporations, to large corporations and wealthy individuals. But the legislation also made provision for we, the people, we, the constituent, to be completely, fully, 100% responsible to pay those $1.5 trillion. We get the least amount of it, but we owe everything. Case number two. The Republican legislators have tried for 8 years to get rid of the Healthcare Act, aka Obamacare, supported by the majority of the people in the country. And as of date, more than 20 million individuals are covered under Obamacare. It would have been twice or even 3 times as many if only 14 governors across the nation, 14 Republican governors, were to simply open the door for constituents to be able to sign up to be covered under the Healthcare Act. They claim it was bad for the country. They claim it would cost jobs. They claim it was a death panel. They claim everything possible to prevent people from signing up. In the end, they claim it would just fall by itself. That was not politics, that was deception. And we know that because in the 2018 midterm election, most of those Republicans ran under the premise that they will do whatever possible if they get elected to make sure that they preserve the important key factors of Obamacare. Whatever happened to it was bad for the country. Whatever happened, it would cost jobs. Whatever happened, it would just die on its own. Yes, Republicans in general have been masters of deception. They promote the $1.5 trillion debt added to the national debt as a tax cut for the people, when in fact, as they were promoting that, they were drafting a legislation that clearly say only 10% of that will go to the people. It is not politics. It is Machiavellian. It is nefarious. It was not a mistake from the Republican. It was simply deception. They know exactly what they wanted to do. Provide a $1.5 trillion tax cut to the large corporation and wealthy individual. Mind you, at a time when corporations were brimming with cash, record profits, record revenues, and yet, despite the opposition by more than 60% of the constituent in the country, Republican legislators said, the hell with the constituent, because we do want to give a tax cut to the wealthy and to the large corporation. Oh, by the way, we do have a way to pay down for it. A few weeks ago, Mitch McConnell went to an interview with Bloomberg and said, we're going to have to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and all the benefits provided public assistance. Oh, yes. As far as we, the people, are concerned, the Republican legislature do not have any stake on the people of the country. They have proven that beyond a reasonable doubt. For those who simply are simple-minded, those who do have to vote Republican at all costs, no matter how much they realize that Republicans have never been on their sides. Which sound-minded individual would hand a sharper knife to someone who threatened to stab him or her? Only in the Republican Party you would find such individuals. The 2018 midterm election clearly proved beyond a reasonable doubt that we do have such individual in the Republican Party. No matter how much Democrats revel in their victory, that was not a victory for the country, because there were, at the very least, according to the last record, at the very least up to 7.5 or 7.8 million Republicans who went to the poll and still believe that it is okay to vote their Republican legislators, governors, mayors in office. Yes, there are two types of fools in the world: those who cannot change and those who will not change. And whatever the votes are, it is a lifetime impact on the nation. Picture Donald Trump in the Oval Office and take a look back at how much damage has already been done to the nation, to the world even. A vote is not just a vote. A vote has a lifetime impact. And we will see how much impact the votes we've been casting, have been having on the country, on the very fabric of the country for the past few decades. Because a vote is not just a vote. It is a lifetime commitment. And want it or not, we will all pay the consequences of those who simply vote because they either want to stick it to the other side, or they simply want to spite everyone around them. But thank God, there are sound-minded individuals in the nation who are still fighting, even for those who cannot even spell their proper name or their name properly. It is a sad story. That election, that is considered a victory, reveal another very sad aspect of the United States of America. I'll be right back. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the Fourth Branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment.
Don't go anywhere. The Fourth Branch program will return in just a moment.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
For the past few days, we have been talking about a very important topic, the welfare program. I mentioned at the top of this program that Mitch McConnell gave an interview to Bloomberg a few weeks ago in which he mentioned that we have a national debt problem. And the way that he proposed to take care of that debt is to cut on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and of course, all forms of public assistance. We do indeed have a national debt problem. But Mitch McConnell failed to mention that this year, in just 2 years of the Trump administration, the first act, the very first act the Republican Party did is to do something that was overwhelmingly opposed by the majority of the constituents in this country, which is to borrow $1.5 trillion to add to the national debt. But worse, they took 1.3 out of those 1.5 and passed it to large corporations and wealthy individuals. Actually, the number is not 1.2, it's 1.275, so almost $1.3 trillion. The big pie that you see on the screen, the blue one, is the amount of money out of the 1.5 borrowed that was given to large corporations and wealthy individuals. And the green part, the small little piece, is used to divide among the constituents in the country. But despite the fact that we, the people, got the least amount of that money, we are fully responsible for the whole pie. In other words, to pay for this pie, we have to pay for it with our tax money. Now, this is not anything new in the Republican Party. It is something that has been done over and over and over for the past few decades. Republicans have been very good. They're masters of deception. When that $1.5 trillion were being the legislation was being drafted, and they were Republican exclusively, no Democrats involved. In fact, they didn't want any input from Democrats. Well, truth be told, Democrats were also against it. Republicans were out there beating the drum that it's going to be a huge tax cut for the people. Not only they did something that was not to be done because it's adding to the national debt, but they also were out there deceiving us, we, the people, telling us it is for us. Picture someone who goes to the bank, borrowed $100,000, give you $10,000, and take the other $90,000 and give to his rich uncle. Now, would that person be able to claim that they borrowed $100,000 for you? Of course not. But that's exactly what the Republicans did. But what's worse is the fact that they were out there beating that drum, which means they purposely out there deceiving us. First, there was no need for the money, to borrow money, because nobody asked them to. The economy was doing great. Large corporations who were going to get the most of the money were brimming with cash. They were reporting record profit, record revenue, and yet the Republican legislator deemed it necessary to give them more money. So that was not politics. You can call it whatever you want, but you cannot call that politics, especially when the outcome of doing that add a burden to we, the people. Now, you don't have to be a math genius to realize that the Republican legislators, they did that on purpose, but they also lied to us on purpose, because if they were to come to you and say, we're going to take $1.5 trillion, borrow $1.5 trillion, and we're going to take 90% of that money and give it to large corporations, but you, the people, are only going to get 10%, I'm sure that there would have been a lot of protests on the street. But that's not what they did. They come to us and they say, you're going to get a huge tax cut. And also, on purpose, they failed to say that we also responsible for the whole $1.5 trillion money that they just borrowed. This is master of deception. But that did not start yesterday, because it had started a long time ago. In 1976, there was a gentleman by the name of Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was running for the office of the presidency. And to deceive the people he was trying to rally around his cause, his theme, and as it is pretty much given standard here in the United States of America, election after election, candidates for president of the United States, Republicans in general, well, Republican exclusively, always run on the premise that they are going to do something great for the nation. They're going to take care of the welfare program. And the reason that they use that as their springboard is because there is this myth in the nation among almost everybody, but mostly in the Republican circle, that welfare first is a program whose beneficiaries are black. So it is very easy, because blacks have always been the stepping stone for any Republican who wants to climb the political ladder. They step on the back of the blacks in order to get to the next level. The slavery, anyone, they sit drinking coffee, drinking tea, having great conversation, and planning, while blacks were on the field working 18, 20 hours. Slavery abolished, that wasn't enough because, hey, gee, we have to have a way to continue to exploit that group. So fast forward to 1976, Ronald Reagan created a character called the Welfare Queen. Now that Welfare Queen has 80 names, 80 names, 30 addresses, 12 Social Security, on Medicaid, collecting food stamps and getting up to $150,000. That's in 1976. If we convert that to today's equivalence in terms of money, that Welfare Queen was making close to almost $750,000. Now, you don't have to be a historian to understand how angry those who were there at those rallies, how angry they were to see that how hard they have to work, how much effort they have to put into going to work, whether it snows, it sleets, it's cold, it's hot, they have to go to work. And yet here is that character who's just sitting at home, eating steak, drinking martini, and getting $150,000, probably driving a Cadillac, as that was what en vogue at that time, on the back of those hard workers. Now, we have been looking for that Welfare Queen and never could get our hands on her, despite the fact we know her whereabouts, because it was, according to the story concocted by Ronald Reagan, it was in Chicago. We could never spot that Welfare Queen. And yet, every election, every presidential election, every Republican candidate climb on the back of that Welfare Queen in order to springboard to promote their campaign. That has never stopped. That has never ended. We know that because in 2012, Mitt Romney, caught on video, was talking about that very fact. That we're not going to worry about the 47%. By the way, that's Mitt Romney talking. We're not going to worry about those 47% because those people are never going to vote for us because they really depend on public assistance, food stamp. You know, they're going to vote for Obama, the food stamp president. So the character that was painted, crafted by Ronald Reagan in 1976, that character, that Welfare Queen, continue to hover on the country. That Welfare Queen never died. In the Republican circle, that's the best way to make certain that their audience, usually white, get yay, cheer. Rick Santorum did exactly the same thing too. He proposed to take care of the welfare system because, you know, we cannot just go to work and work hard and for some bum to sit at home and just take advantage of it. That fairy tale in the Republican circle has survived 42 years. But here's the irony of the whole thing. I have been talking about that for the past 3 days, and there are plenty of video on the People Branch YouTube channel which provide really plenty of detail to show that this fairy tale is believed by Republicans and continue to be promoted by candidate for the Oval Office. And that welfare queen seems to be a villain that Republicans want to keep around. They don't want to kill the welfare queen. They want to keep the welfare queen around in order to be able to continue to promote their political career. That welfare queen is a symbol of blacks, lazy people who don't want to do anything, just want to sit and collect welfare check, be on food stamp. That's the idea. That's why the welfare queen would not die, because Republicans who run for public office, they want that villain to continue to be around because they don't have anything to offer. So they have to have a villain. And by the way, that's one of the forte of Donald Trump. He knows how to create a villain. And as you see in any movie on screen, big screen or on TV, the only thing that's attractive to the audience is to have a villain and someone, a hero, to take care of that problem. And Donald Trump has mastered that. No doubt about it. But it's not Donald Trump that came with the idea. Republicans have been using that for the longest. Unfortunately, blacks have been the villain in the Republican circle. Use blacks as the villain and everything will just fall in place. That welfare queen, Republican legislators don't want to kill that queen, because if they do, they have to come up with something else. Until they do, that queen has to exist. And yet, that welfare queen is as real as Bigfoot. Now, here's what even more troubling, and I provided that information yesterday when I was talking about the number of people on welfare, and also who the recipients are. And no matter where you look, whether it's Medicaid, food stamp, check, overwhelmingly white. In 2017, a report by the think tank, by a think tank organization, which take data information that go all the way to 2014. The report was put out in 2017, but the information, the data were all the way up to 2014, were 6.8 million people who are lifted out of poverty, white. Blacks, 2.8, not even half of the whites. People on food stamp, 2016, 43% white. Black, 25.6%. You can go down the line. You'll find that overwhelmingly whites are beneficiaries of the food stamp, of the welfare program. But when Republicans are talking about welfare, they want that idea, that perception to continue around the country that blacks are the majority of the beneficiaries. And the reason they want it to be that way is because it's easy for them to say, we're going to take care of that because those damn blacks, those bum, those lazy people, we should simply cut them off. And white cheer, yes, let's just do that. because it's easy. If it's black, hey, no problem. Now, my take, the welfare program is necessary in the United States. And it doesn't matter to me whether it's black or white who take advantage of it or take advantage of that, because it is necessary. All nations, industrialized, rich nation in the world have a system, a financial public assistance program to lift people out of poverty. And the United States of America, being a rich country, ought to have that. There is no if and but about that. But what is troubling is the fact that even the people, the white people who are on the welfare program, when they go to those meetings, to those rallies, they pretend not to know what those candidates are talking about, and they just cheer. Not only are they a bunch of hypocrites as well, I don't have anything against people who actually need public assistance. George Romney, who was Mitt Romney's father, was on welfare. Yes, George Romney, Mitt Romney's father. So when you hear Mitt Romney making the kind of comment that he made, that was really pretty hypocritical. I don't have any problem that someone who has financial difficulty go and take advantage of the public assistance that is provided so that he or she can get out of poverty. But Republican legislators, supported by those who actually, quite a few of them, taking advantage of the welfare program, they always pretend not to be the group. My problem is not the fact that someone who has financial difficulty seeks for public assistance and take advantage of the public assistance offered in the country so that they can lift themselves out of poverty. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But it is the perception that Republicans in particular, Republicans, legislators, which I have reason to believe that they know that's not the case because they have those data, they have those information. Maybe the constituent may not know because the constituent don't have time to be researching those kind of things. That's unless they are in the predicament or they know someone in the predicament, that piece of information would not be available to the constituent. But the legislators, Republican legislators, they are well aware of the fact that it is not true that blacks are the majority on welfare. They know that. And yet, whenever that they go out there, they pretend that because it's blacks who are the most beneficiaries of the program, then we should not have any problem, cut it off. There are two problems with that. One, if someone has financial difficulty, it is absolutely necessary for our government to help that individual, to lift that individual out of poverty. And second, it doesn't matter whether it's black or white. But here's where the biggest part of the problem comes from. It's not just the perception that the Republicans have been promoting as blacks being the major beneficiaries. It's not just that perception, but they also been promoting the idea that someone who is on welfare is living the life. Would you not want to be on welfare too so that you can live that life? The character that Ronald Reagan painted, that welfare queen, who has 80 names, 30 addresses, 12 social security, on Medicaid, collecting food stamps and getting up to $150,000, equivalent to $750,000. Gee, would you not want to be on welfare too? Because if someone can get that much without lifting a finger, why the rest of us would even bother going to work? Just go on welfare because it pays so well. And this is where I see the stupidity, the naiveness, and the gullibility of the Republican constituent. Has that idea ever occurred to you to think, gee, how did that person manage to get 80 names, 30 addresses, and 12 social security? Has anybody asked that very question to think how absurd this idea is? And yet, for 42 years, Republicans have been promoting that very absurd, ridiculous idea, and the constituents have been eating it up. But to the matter at hand, Republican legislators, Republican aspirant to the presidency of the United States, they have been promoting the idea that blacks, being the major beneficiaries of the welfare program, so let's just put an end to all that. And Mitch McConnell just headed to that in his interview. We're going to cut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and our public assistance program to pay for the national debt. Now, this is the irony of the whole thing. It was okay, Republicans, it was okay to go and borrow money and give to those large corporations who already have their business brimming with cash. But for some reason, there is some logic to go and cut off those who actually need public assistance and cut them off. The rationale in the Republican Party is mind-boggling. But what's even worse is the fact that the constituents are so naive, they actually believe those kind of things that have been fed to them. Now, are people on welfare living it up? Let's take a look, because if you tune into Fox or you listen to any of the Republican pundit, radio, Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, Tucker Carlson, Fox and Friends, you would say to yourself, why in the world do I have to go to work? Because those people are living the life and I am busting my butt for those damn blacks to be sitting at home and just collecting welfare checks. One, in order to get any public assistance, you have to be eligible. You don't just walk into a welfare office and say, I'd like to be on welfare. Of course, if you listen to Fox or any of those programs, you get a sense that it's as easy as walking in, apply, and then walk out. You sit at home, put your hand behind your head, and sit and watch TV, drinking beer, and your welfare check will keep coming. That's the picture that you get listening to those ignorant people at Fox. Now, I must say, in all fairness, they not ignorant in the sense they don't know or they couldn't find out. They want their audience to stay ignorant because that's how they make a living. Because the more ignorant you stay as an audience, viewer of Fox or any of those pundits that keep spewing lies and garbage, the more ignorant that their audience is, the better it is for them, because their audience keep glued to their program of course, they're becoming also dumber and dumber. They couldn't care less, because that's the idea. They want dumb people, people who don't know any better, to keep promoting the idea of their ignorance. It becomes a vicious circle. You go on Fox and you listen to an ignorant individual telling you about how the welfare system works. Bring some fool that they pay a few $1,000s to tell a story about how much is milking the welfare system, and then you believe it, and then you go and tell your friend, and it become part of your circle, and then the next thing you know, Fox is reporting that people are talking about that problem. See how it works? That's the world of Fox. That's how they create a bubble of false information, and then they have an audience that cannot simply get out of it, because the more they feed bad information, the more you get accustomed to it, the more you like it. People like sensationalism. In fact, that's exactly what Roger Ailes built Fox on. Now back on track. People on welfare has to apply, and you have to apply in the state you live. So you cannot live in Washington and go to apply in California. And the reason is because they want to keep a tab on you. One, and once you apply in a state, you cannot go and apply in another state. Now, this welfare queen that has 80 names and 12 social security cards, as I mentioned, is almost near impossible for that individual to exist. You apply for welfare in the welfare program, they take all your information, including your social security, all the information that you provide, and they put it into the system, and they find out if you are eligible to receive public assistance. Now, there is this department called the Health and Human Services. Now, that department put out a range that helps the welfare program decide whether an individual who apply for public assistance should receive public assistance. That was revised in 2018. Every year, the Health and Human Services put out this guideline that is used by the welfare program to decide whether you are, if you go to apply for public assistance, that guideline help the welfare staff to decide whether you're eligible or not. What you're currently looking at is that guideline. Now, Alaska and Hawaii have a slightly different guideline, but it's not major. It's very, very slightly different in terms of numbers. Now, take a look at those numbers on your screen. In order for you to be eligible for public assistance, your income, your net income for the month, your gross income cannot be more than $1,316. That's a month, 1 month. And your net income cannot be more than $1,012. Now, I don't know how good you are in math, but someone who gets $1,000 a month, I don't know how great of a life that person is living. In New York City, actually, not New York City, in New York, you can hardly rent a room with $1,000, let alone have a plushy life. Now, those are the individuals that Fox put in front of you to tell you they're living the life. But wait a minute. This is what the the welfare program used to find out whether those people are eligible for public assistance. But what do they get? How much do they get? And that I'm dying to see, because, you know, anybody can decide not to make too much money so that they can become eligible, right? Because that's exactly what those ignorant fools at Fox are trying to say. It's not becoming eligible, because in order for you to be eligible, there is no if and but around that. You have to meet those criteria. And there is no way you can lie about that, because your Social Security clearly say how much money you're making. So there is no if and but about that. So maybe those people, they're smarter than we thought. They just work enough to make just enough so that they can become eligible for welfare. Maybe that's where they become smart, because they gonna live a life. They work just the bare minimum so that they can become eligible and start living the life. That's probably what we're missing. Could that be? Is it possible? Of course it is possible. So how much are those people making? That's what I'm dying to find out, because it seems that maybe I was too eager to bash Fox and company as to the type of life those people on welfare have. Because yes, in order for them to be eligible for public assistance, they have to meet those criteria. There is no if and but about it. Nobody can get out of that. Even if you have friends working at those welfare offices, they cannot do anything about that. Because once you come, you have to provide name, Social Security, address, all the information that they need to verify that you qualify for that program. Even if the manager at the site cannot do anything about it, because your information has to be put into the system, and the system, based on the criteria that you see Health and Human Services put out every year, only those criteria, if they are matched, can an individual be qualified or become eligible for public assistance. So maybe the people on welfare, the people who apply for welfare assistance, maybe they have gotten so smart, they beat the system. Maybe that's what Fox has been saying all along. Maybe that's what I've been missing. Could it be? Is it possible? Well, let's find out. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the Fourth Branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. We just cracked the code. You know, Fox has been talking about that all along. And, you know, I know how much those people always put false information out. So I automatically assume that when they say people on welfare are living it up, I just didn't know. But I found out that maybe that's true. That's why I decided to go and research what those people are getting in order to decide for myself, maybe that's the route to take. Because while I complain about the Republican taking $1.5 trillion to give to the wealthy and the large corporation, little did I know that the people on welfare are also living the life, courtesy of Fox. Now, you're going to be shocked also to find out that you've been missing out on this huge windfall that people on welfare have been getting. I was shocked. What you're currently looking at here, if you are eligible for public assistance, on the left side, it's the number of people in the household. And on the right side, that's what you get on any given month in terms of public assistance. And public assistance means food stamp, cash, including in that public assistance. Medicaid is not part of it. Medicaid is a different aspect of it. But take a look at the first line. If you are a single individual and you bring home $1,012 in any particular month, and notice I said $1,000 a month, 30 days, 4 weeks. In 30 days and 4 weeks, you bring $1,000. That translates to approximately $25 per day. If you bring $1,000 a month and you go for public assistance, they will give you a total of $192. And that's what Fox says, that those people are living the life. No wonder they don't want to get out of welfare. Oh, by the way, when you apply for public assistance, and if you're eligible and you receive public assistance, you can only receive public assistance for a total of 5 years in any lifetime. Now, it wasn't always that way. Now, if you are a single individual and you're receiving food stamp, you can only receive it for 3 months. They call it single able-bodied individual. You can only receive it for 3 months in one sitting, and for a total of 6 months for a lifetime. So when I heard that people on welfare are living the life, I thought, someone sit at home, just be eligible for welfare, and then you can live the life. I wonder how those people manage to live such a luxurious life. They're making just $1,000 a month, and they're only receiving less than $200 public assistance, and they still manage to live the life, eating steak, drinking caviar, drinking martini rather, eating caviar, Now, the reason that picture is painted to you, Republicans, is because they always try, Republican legislator and pundit always try to make you believe that the majority of the people on welfare are black. And I know how much Republican in particular, most anyway, hate black. So the minute that they say that, that's all they need to say. That's all whoever is bidding for a public office, that's all they need to say. Welfare. Oh, those damn black. We got to cut them off. Mitt Romney in particular, I was very frustrated to see that Mitt Romney in particular, he cannot not know the story that his father was on welfare before he was lifted out of poverty and become a wealthy individual, for Mitt Romney to grow up in a wealthy family. Mitt Romney in particular should have been a pioneer to make certain that the welfare program is strengthened to help people get out of poverty, not bashing people who are on welfare. You cannot be on welfare for more than 5 years. And while you're on welfare, you have to do certain things in order for you to get a job, get education, get training, and get out of welfare. And here's the biggest incentive for those who may not know. People on welfare don't want to be on welfare. It's because there is no other alternative. They have to be on welfare in order to help their family get out of the poverty. I may have provided you this yesterday. Blacks in general, single blacks, even if they make the minimum, even if they're eligible for public assistance, making minimum wage, $1,000 a month, if they are single, it is almost a guarantee they're not going to look for public assistance. Now, if it's single parent with children, there is a pretty good chance that the mother, who is usually the single parent, is going to do everything possible to make sure that her children get some sort of public assistance. But the blacks, single men, single women, if they're making, even if they're eligible, but if they're getting a salary, no matter how small it is very rare that you'd find that individual going to a welfare office to seek for public assistance. Blacks have a lot of pride. Now, by contrast, both single white individual and two parents, very likely to actually seek for public assistance. Now, look at the number, the last paragraph. 6.8 million white were lifted out of poverty compared to just 2.8 million blacks. So when you hear people like Sean Hannity telling you this story about people on welfare living the life they don't want to live, the type of life, there are so many parts of the story that are untrue. One, being eligible for public assistance requires that people jump through the hoof. your name, match your social security, match your address, and a bunch of other criteria, including your income. 2, even if you are qualified, the amount that you're getting is not an incentive for you to say, I'm going to be on welfare forever. This is great life. 3, people who seek public assistance do not want to be in that predicament. In fact, it is humiliating. Which brings me to a very important point, that indeed the welfare program needs to be reformed, but not in the like of the Republican. There are currently 40,000 veterans homeless on the street, scavenging for food in garbage can. 40,000 individuals who served the country, who gave their lives for the country. And most of them are on the street because when they come back from deployment, sometimes they come as a different person and they do not have a family any longer, so they end up on the street. You know what some of them said why they prefer to be on the street than seeking public assistance? Because of the humiliation when they go to a welfare office, how much the people who are there to assist people who have financial difficulty, how much they insult them, they humiliate them. So those veterans rather be on the street than being humiliated in the welfare program. Yes, the welfare system need to be reformed, but not to be reformed because of those damn blacks that are the beneficiaries, because they are not, but being reformed so that they can help people with financial difficulty with dignity. Not because someone has financial difficulty that that individual need to be insulted. That individual need to be treated with dignity. George Romney, Mitt Romney's father, was on welfare. Now, if you fast forward to the future, when he became a successful businessman, what would it be like for you to go and look for a job at his business and find out that this is the individual you've insulted a decade earlier? Ben Carson's mother was on welfare. Barbara Bono was on welfare. Bruce Springsteen was on welfare. Peter Drake, who now owned the Drake Enterprise, was on welfare. Yes, the welfare system needs to exist here in the United States and need to be strengthened, need to be available for those who have financial difficulties. And the Republican legislators, every opportunity that they have, they see the only place to look is to harm and hurt those who are already hurting, but find it just fine to help those who already have plenty. It is time that we, the people, take over the governing of our country. The Republican legislators, they do not have what it takes to govern. They do not have what it takes to run the country. They have failed us miserably. And it's not just today. They have been failing the country for decades now. Yes, they have lost the House, but this is not a victory for the Democrats. It is a sad day for America, that still there are millions of individuals in the country who still do not understand that Republicans do not have their interests at heart. Republican legislators, they couldn't care less about your well-being. They have proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. They make that case every single day that they legislate in Washington. And because members who are constituents who are naive, who are gullible, continue to support an individual, continue to support legislators who work against the well-being of the country. No, this is not an assumption. This is not a speculation. It is in black and white. For the past 2 years alone, don't have to go far. Don't have to go back. You'll find plenty if you go back. But the past 2 years alone, take a look at what Republican legislators have done. And tell me if those individuals that you voted in office work for your well-being. It is time. It is well overdue that we do indeed, as a country, vote every Republican out of office and replace them with those who are concerned about the well-being of the nation, about those who are true patriots. It is necessary. Your vote happened in an instant, but the impact is everlasting. I'll be right back. Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. every Saturday. And every weekday at 2 p.m. This is the 4th branch.
Common sense in a world of chaos.
This program will resume in just a moment. I do thank you for spending the time with me. If you have any question, comments, suggestion, or if you have a topic that you would be interested in finding out, shoot us an email. Contact us on via Twitter. This program, the 4th branch, is not a political group, is not a political program, and does not have any political affiliation. Although we realize that the program does have some opinion that may not necessarily be supportive of yours. But the main focus of the program is to achieve a more perfect union. And to do so, we need to provide accurate information, not sound bites, not politically tinted sound bite, but rather information that you can use to make decision, information that you can verify. Of course, you can always make the wrong decision with the correct information. But the bottom line is, when you make that decision, you will know, like today, that the welfare program, blacks are not the majority of the beneficiary. You also find out that indeed the welfare program doesn't give anybody enough money to live a life of luxury. You also learn that the welfare program, you cannot be in the welfare program forever. And while you receiving public assistance, you also learn that you have to be looking for a job. Information that are not provided to you by those who simply want to advance a political agenda. So let us know which topic you would like to hear about. We'll research it, we'll debate it, we'll provide you with the information, and you'll make your decision. We're not here to make it for you, but to provide information so that when you make the decision, you make it knowing exactly why you're making that decision, not based on false information. Once again, we do thank you for spending the time with us, and we hope you will be with us again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Well, tomorrow is Saturday, actually. Our program is at 10:30 a.m. So we'll see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Have a good afternoon. The Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.